What is going on, everybody? My name is Austin. Welcome to the channel. Today we are here to talk about Absolute Evil issue number 1, the Absolute Justice League being formed. This is insane. This issue was phenomenal. I can't wait to get through it. Let's go ahead and get started reading through it. Now, the issue starts off in 1951, where Hawkman, our first appearance of Absolute Hawkman, has been summoned to a meeting of the Un-American Activities Committee. This is not a comics exclusive group. This is a very real thing that was created in 1938. Now, Hawkman says, "Gentlemen of the House of Un-American Activities Committee, you called me to this closed-door session to answer certain questions. I've thought long and hard about the answers. During my covert work as the Hawkman, my true identity has remained my own secret. Now you say I have to give that secret up. My face, my name, my life, I do consider these my own business, but sometimes business takes a backseat to pleasure. And you know what? It'll be a real pleasure to inform on the commie rats nibbling away at this great country. What do you want to know, boys?" We now cut to the present and we see Oliver Queen on the radio with Roy Harper, and he says, "This is Oliver Queen. Roy, what's new with you, kiddo? Me? Oh, I'm doing good. In the green, hitting my targets." We don't know what Roy says over the phone, but Oliver says, "Ha, you heard that right, huh? You got me, kid. Guilty as charged. I'm down in the Arrow Cave. Yeah, I'm practicing my party piece, the Robin Hood bit." He takes a shot at a target and he doesn't quite get the bullseye, and he says, "Damn, so close." It's becoming clearer and clearer that this version of Oliver Queen is not nearly as good of a marksman as the real Oliver Queen in Prime Earth. He continues by saying, "It'll do. Oh, ye of little faith. What I paid for this setup, of course I'm gonna use it. I've got everything I need down here. Archery range, computer setup like you wouldn't believe, a garage, that convertible I designed. Yeah, with the ejector seat. You never wanted one of those? Well, maybe it'll come in handy, smart guy." He says, "What? I'm not allowed to have hobbies? I asked you if you wanted in on this, man. What's with the third degree here?" He pauses and says, "Oh, yeah, I'm going after Jubal Slade." Now, it's important to note, Jubal Slade is not Deathstroke. I've seen a lot of people on TikTok think that that is Deathstroke. It's not. Those are two different characters, and we already know that Deathstroke exists because of Absolute Batman. Anyways, Oliver continues and says, "Look, I told you about his island, right? All those private flights, just kids, because he bought the cops, Roy. He bought the courts. The system was built for guys like this. I gotta do something. Somebody's gotta do something." Obviously, this is a reference to real-life Jeffrey Epstein. I don't know what else this could possibly be a reference to, but it's pretty crazy that they'd be willing to sneak something in there like that. Oliver says, "Why not me? All this stuff I have, this money, what does it do? What do I do? What are we actually doing here, any of us? Because something is. It's killing us all, man. Some moral cancer it's rotting us inside, rotting our souls. Don't tell me to calm down, Roy. I mean it. You can be in or out, but I'm serious. This is the way I make a difference in the world, you know? This is the direction I was always headed." And he slams an arrow down into the table. We then cut to Hector Hammond, who obviously is from Absolute Wonder Woman, and he is on the phone heading towards a secret meeting. And guess who he's on the phone with? None other than Jubal Slade. He says, "Sometimes that's the way it goes, Jubal. A guy turns 40, gets a gray hair, gets ideas. I bought a Maserati. Queen grew a conscience. It happens. But take a breath here. What can he actually do? What's his next move?" He talks big, sure, but it's Ollie, you know? He doesn't want results. He wants to feel righteous, and nothing feels more righteous than losing. Get him around a table. This goes away in a month. I don't know, 5 million? Chump change, sweetie. Just trust me here, Jubes. I know this guy. Ollie Queen is never going to surprise anybody. Now, before he can continue his conversation, he gets stopped at the door by a security officer, and he says, "We're detecting some electronic devices on your person. You were made aware of the stipulations of today's meeting?" And Hector's like, sure, but you know who I am, right? My business is worth more than most countries. I need to be in contact with the office." And security interrupts him and says, "It's a condition of attendance, Mr. Hammond. Informational boundaries must be maintained. National security if you'd rather not attend this meeting." And Hector says, "Yeah, sure. Should I take off my belt and shoes?" He ends up listening to the security officers, and one of them says, "Thank you, sir, if you'd like to follow me." And Hector says, "Sure, and maybe when I'm in there, I'll talk to your boss about the attitude. See how that goes for you." And someone greets him by saying his name. There are 4 other people waiting at this table for him, and the person greeting him is Veronica Cale from Absolute Wonder Woman. He says, "Glad you could finally join us. Veronica Cale, National Security Advisor. I'm the boss. You had something to say?" Now, Hector isn't taking this seriously at all. He's all jokes, and he says, "If we're doing coffee orders, I'll take a macchiato, sweetheart." And he's interrupted by Ra's al Ghul, who says, "No, This room is not for games. It is not for play. Speak of work or do not speak. And Hector's like, who in the hell do you think you are? And Ra's says, I am Ra's al Ghul. If you do not know what that means, be glad and be silent. And Hector says, I was being rhetorical, you puts. Elenore Thawne from Absolute Flash chimes in and she says, I have to side with Mr. Al Ghul on this. Our time is more valuable than any resource on Earth, Mr. Hammond. Far too precious to waste on your little jokes. And he catches a glimpse from Absolute Joker who says, agreed, I don't enjoy jokes. Hector says, yeah, I know who you are, laughing boy. Elenore continues and says, if we all know who we are, can we agree to get on with this? And Veronica begins by saying, thank you, Dr. Thawne. Let's begin. New York, 1939, chemist Wesley Dodds gets rich off his patents for improved anesthetic compounds. Soon after, a masked detective called the Sandman makes waves in the society pages armed with a non-lethal sleep gas. Wesley Dodds is young, idealistic, romantic. It's not hard to put the two and two together. Even before Dodds is found shot dead in his Sandman suit, his basement laboratory has been ransacked. A year later, the US military acquires some new and very lethal nerve gas weapons. Was that lethal gas brewed from Dodd's stolen notes? Ask the conspiracy theorists. Did it win us the war? Ask the historians. They'll say yes. She continues and says, 1942, Gotham City, Ted Grant, a professional boxer, is framed for murder by the small-time hoods. Grant's young, he's romantic, he puts on a cat costume, beats the hell out of them, and clears his name. He calls himself the Wildcat, and the neighborhood eats it up. So he busts some more small-time hoods, then medium-time hoods, working his way up. On a stakeout, he overhears a factory inspector taking a bribe from a munitions magnate to look the other way on safety standards, and then he comes into $50,000 tax-free, and that is the end of Wildcat. Grant buys a gym in some town I'm not even going to try to pronounce, trains a couple champions, dies peacefully in his sleep, aged 81. 16 people die in workplace accidents in that factory over the next 5 years, making that gas I just mentioned, the one that won us the war. So maybe taking the money was the most heroic thing that Wildcat ever did. She goes on and says, 1951, Los Angeles, Iron Monroe, a movie stuntman and a real freak of nature. Rumor had it that he could stop a bullet at 50 yards and outrun a locomotive. He decides he wants to fight a never-ending battle for truth and justice. The never-ending battle seems to involve a lot of socialist meetings. He's called before the House of Un-American Activities Committee around the same time as a couple of other adventurers of the period. But Monroe refuses to name names, calls McCarthy a demagogue. That's the end of him. Within a year, he's living in a lonely shack in the Nevada desert, which is accidentally targeted for a chemical weapons test. Someone filed in the wrong paperwork, apparently. Monroe's lungs weren't as tough as the rest of him, but they were just as red. 3 out of 100 examples throughout history, there have been individuals who have acted outside the status quo, and the status quo has dealt with those individuals one way or another. Who remembers them now? So it goes, and so it has always gone until now. The Gateway event, so called because it took place in Gateway City, and because apparently it opened a door to a whole new bag of craziness. That thing is called a tetracide. It was the second most dangerous creature to appear that day. This is the most dangerous, and a photo of Wonder Woman pops up. She arrived here from hell. She deafened a city. She became a Gorgon, turned the tetracide to stone, then destroyed it with a punch. She also, and this is the part I find most concerning, took operational command of the scene. Troops on the ground deferred to her. Based on what exactly? Her bearing? Her tone? Mind control? Why was she not arrested? At the same time, the word spreads of another creature. This one is male, violently disrupting Lazarus Corp operations in Brazil, shrugging off artillery that would have blown a hole through Iron Monroe, melting tanks with its eyes, following which a trained Peacemaker agent ignores Brainiac algorithm recommendations and writes her after-action report directly in somewhat poetic detail. Roz temporarily interrupts and says, are you more interested in how the report was written than the contents? And she says it's indicative of a trend. Gotham City, this one is human, we think, but he seems to redefine what human can be. He appears and vanishes like a ghost. He somehow built his resources into the city itself. He wears an axe blade on his chest, for God's sake. Joker chimes in with his hands together and says, he didn't take the money. And she says, yes, exactly. Unlike Ted Grant, he didn't take the money. She says, what else? A vast alien object falls on the town of Evergreen, a second gateway event, less telegenic this time, thank God. It helps that the object isn't around anymore, but we know who the survivors of the event are, and they've been altered. Meanwhile, a military experiment at the Fort Fox base goes haywire. Again, there was at least one survivor who remains altered and on the run. And what other beings are out there? What forms do they take? Are they even corporeal? We don't know. We can't know. But we do know that things are escalating. These new threats are more dangerous than any before them. And the greatest danger that they pose is not what they can do, but what they can convince others to do, what they can inspire. Peacekeeper agents ignoring protocol, military officers taking orders from civilians, seasoned cops refusing to open fire on a man dressed as a bat. There is order in this world. There is a hierarchy. These things make a mockery of that. They could topple everything if allowed to, if we allow them to. Previously, we could all meet these threats individually. I no longer believe that's possible. You all have private resources, as do I. As National Security Advisor and Director of Area 41, I have additional government resources. But if we don't put all those together, if we don't work together, these monsters will take apart our world. Hector, of course, is the first one to speak, and he says, no sale. He says, I get it. Uncle Sam's hard up these days, so the begging bowl comes with a scare story. But nobody's scared, Toots, because the point of that little speech was that people like us have always handled people like them. And frankly, I don't need any help now. And Roz says, I think you do. But Hector says, yeah? Well, you think wrong. Got rid of the Green Lantern, didn't I? If I've got a problem, if any of my friends have a problem, I do not need Lazarus Corp to help solve it, capiche? Roz says, I think now is a good time, Cale. Veronica agrees and says, me too. Send in Mr. Hall, please. And that is when Hawkman walks in the door with Oliver Queen's dead body draped over his shoulder. He throws him on the table, looks at the rest of the members in the room and says, questions? Roz says, that is how we solve problems, Mr. Hammond. Not in a month, in a day. No sitting around the table, no chump change, no games, and no jokes. He gets a little glare from the Joker, and Hector says, how did you... Elenore says, so this was murder or covert assassination? Is this a threat of some kind? Blackmail? What's the point, Cale? She says, call it a demonstration. What power can do for money, what money can do for power. How difficult it is for you to get intel on your little escaped experiment from Fort Fox, Elenore. How much effort did it take for Hammond to be the first on the scene in Evergreen? How many millions? How many favors? Next time, and there will be a next time, you could each make one phone call. She says, unless Lazarus calls first, I suppose, then it's a bidding war. Frankly, I still agree with Hammond. As convenient as an alliance might be for you, I don't see the need to be in each other's pockets. It's not as if we're friends. And that is when Joker finally decides to speak up. And he says, no, not friends. May I have the floor? He says, thank you. I'm going to share some recent research from a particle physics laboratory under my aegis. Needless to say, this is proprietary information. If any of what I'm about to tell you reaches any ears outside this room, I'll take it seriously. And that is when we see Brainiac watching this entire conversation unfold through the glasses of Ra's al Ghul. And I have a feeling that Joker knows that that's exactly what's happening. Brainiac looks horrified and he says, duly noted. Joker starts by saying the Higgs boson is known in popular science as the God particle. It's considered by many to be the final piece of the puzzle of quantum mechanics, the one elementary particle that confirms how the universe works. They're wrong. Last year, we found a better one, the true end of the search. We call it the Omega particle. Studying it has revealed fundamental truths about the world we live in. This particle forms the basic building block of all creation, and now we know how it behaves, how it reacts, what it reacts to. This particle, this energy, it has a spiritual dimension to it, a moral dimension. Elenore thinks this is crazy and she says, please, you're telling us a subatomic particle understands good and evil? You can't possibly be serious. Roz says, no, he doesn't joke. He never jokes. Listen. Joker continues with a look of disgust on his face and says the fundamental forces of this universe trend in one direction, and now we know that includes societal forces. Gravity distorts the universe, and so the river runs, the curtain falls, the yoke is heavy, we accept that man is tethered to earth. We do not believe a man can fly. With this discovery, we must now accept that there is likewise a moral gravity pulling down, keeping everything that is in its place. Existence is ordered and ordained. Water flows downhill. Those who have not, have not. The rich get rich, the poor get poor, and some hold the winning cards, and some clutch at a handful of jokers. This is not chance, this is not accident, this is design. The sore losers in the game see their fate woven in the fabric of creation and rail against it, call it doom. There's a philosophical term for that perspective, the just world fallacy. And imagine being so twisted, so filled with hate, so paralyzed by fear. Imagine thinking it a fallacy that the world could be just. But the world is just. We have evidence, not of doom, but of a natural order worked upon the world by a higher power. If spoiled little anarchists like the late Mr. Queen here would stand against that order, that I call injustice. And injustice must be fought. Chaos must be fought. We must fight it. And how can we fail? God is on our side. So, are we friends? We are not. To claim friendship with any of you would insult you. To succumb to friendship is against the moral order, but we can be allies. Here, in this room, our watchtower looking down from high above the herd, we can be in league. Between us, we can ensure the moral arc of the universe bends towards justice. A toast then to an ordered world and to our Justice League. This is absolutely insane. The Justice League of the absolute universe is a twisted, disgusting, evil group of villains who believe that they have God on their side. The universe will always go in their direction. This is an awesome twist on the Justice League for the absolute universe. I absolutely love it. Now, Brainiac is still watching through the cameras and he says, fascinating data, just fascinating. And without your methods, I'm not sure I could have acquired it. So thank you for that, Mirror Master. Mirror Master has been here the whole time for some reason. And he says, I didn't come here for thanks, Brainiac. I need your analysis. I need to know how it all connects here and in my mirror, how it connects and how it reflects. He says, indeed, a measure of balance suits my own goals. Hammond balances Roz and the Hawkman, their egos can focus on one another, and Thawne's skepticism matches Cale, the true believer. But this man who doesn't joke, we need to reflect him, learn his secrets, negate his threat. There's a name I recall from my glimpse into your mirror world, someone worth investing in. I think for the Justice League to be complete, it needs one more member. We cut to a couple out in the middle of nowhere, and this man says, sunset and green tea. It's a wonderful life, isn't it? And the girl says, well, I certainly think so. He says, it's strange. I was an angry young man, Dora, envious of others for their power, for their popularity, even their looks. But right here in this moment, I can't think of a single thing I want. And she says, can't you? Because the children are in bed. The man's phone starts to ring, and he says, hold that thought. She says, that phone, always the worst timing. And he says, no rest for the wicked, as they say. It'll just be a moment, darling. He takes the phone out of his pocket and answers it, and he says, this is Lex Luthor speaking. How can I be of help? And we get our first look at absolute Lex Luthor. He looks to be a cowboy almost. He's probably in Kansas. And he seems to have actually found a life for himself, overcome his insecurities. And I love this drawing because you can see in the background there is an Omega symbol in the clouds. This is crazy. Lex Luthor, not only is he not bald, but he has a beard too. He's ginger. That brings us to the end of the issue though. This was an amazing issue. This was a fantastic one-shot to set up the Absolute Justice League, to really connect all of the Absolute stories and bind them together because there hasn't been a whole lot of connectivity between them. Nonetheless, this issue made me so much more excited for how this is going to end, how the Absolute heroes are going to team up and take on the Absolute Justice League. And not only that, what is going to happen with the Absolute Green Arrow solo run? Is it actually going to be Oliver, or is it going to be Roy Harper, who he was on the phone with? I've seen a lot of theories of people saying, well, maybe Roz is going to take Oliver's body and throw him into the Lazarus pits. He'll come back as the Dark Archer. I don't know how I feel about that theory. I think it probably makes sense that Green Arrow is Roy Harper in this universe, but we will have to wait and find out. Anyways, let me know what you guys think about this issue in the comments. I loved this issue so much. I will see you guys in the next video.